Okay. Can everybody hear me? Yes? Can you hear me in the back? Yes? What did you say, Bob? Can you hear me now? Right? Better? Okay, I'm Bob McDougall. I'm the president of the society. Don't let the title fool you. All I do is kind of try and keep the board organized. I chair the meetings, and you're in good shape. The society's got a great board, and they do a wonderful job, and they make my job really easy. I got involved with FAIM about 15, maybe 20 years ago, mostly just through financial support for the society, but about 10 years ago I got involved with the board, and then I've been in this position for the last 5 years. I live in High River here. My wife and Carol and I raised our 3 kids here. We're born back east, but we've lived most of our adult life in High River. So High River's home for us. I feel lucky 5 out of my 6 grandkids live walking distance from where I live, so life's pretty good. So if you've attended an AGM before, and I know a number of you have, we will go through a very formal, somewhat boring part of the agenda where there's motions and voting and all that stuff. It won't last very long. Then we're going to have I'm going to give you a short summary of what your board's been looking at over the last year and over the next year coming. Jerry's going to give us a bit of an operations update. And I encourage you to ask questions, because we always get tons and tons of questions at the AGM, right?
What meeting was that? How much longer?
No, whether you're a staff member or a parent or a friend or just somebody who come in for the treats, this is your time to ask questions. So don't be shy, don't be afraid to ask. I can't guarantee you'll have answers, and if you ask me, I'm just going to put it over to Jerry to answer, but we will commit to getting back to you if we can't answer your question here. But it's a great opportunity to kind of ask some questions that maybe you've had bouncing around, or you see the budget presentation and you don't understand something, then don't be afraid to ask us. And we'll do our best to answer the questions. Okay, so it is 7:04. I'll call the meeting to order. As I said, I'm the president of the Foothills Advocacy and Motion Society, FAIMS. The meeting was called for 7 p.m., so I will now ask that the meeting come to order. I'll chair the meeting, and Michelle Norduff will act as the recording secretary for the meeting. I shall now ask Jerry McCallum, the executive director for FAIMS, to make some formal introductions. How come they didn't clap for me?
We're taping this on YouTube, so we just need to use a mic. And thanks for clapping for me and not for Bob. I appreciate that very much. So I would like to make just a couple of introductions here. So you've met Bob McDougall, the president of our board of directors. I'd like to introduce Mr. Bill Wilding, who's our vice president of our board, Mr. Neil Wallace, who's our treasurer, and Mrs. Heather Good, who's our recording secretary, or secretary. We also have 4 directors at FAIM. Mr. Ken Robertson. Catherine Mills is not here tonight. Mr. David Stark. Also Mrs. Jan Mason, who's also not here tonight. So, and then we have one other guest, Mr. Rohan Sethi from Ascend LLP, our society auditors. So welcome to all of you, and thank you all for coming.
Okay, so before we proceed with the business of the meeting, I'd like to remind you that only full voting members in good standing with FAIMS, meaning members who have paid their society fees in the last 12 months, are entitled to vote on any of the resolutions coming before the meeting. As per the FAIM bylaws, quorum is deemed as 20% of the members in good standing are present to vote at the AGM for the motions. To vote, we ask that you raise the green slip of paper. Let's try that. Let's make sure everybody's got, good? Okay, perfect. Okay, that you raise the green slip of paper to indicate your vote. I've been informed that this annual general meeting has been properly called with due notice given to all members of the society. I've been advised that quorum is present, therefore the meeting is properly constituted to transact business. The minutes of the 2022 annual general meeting are available for inspection by the general members. However, in the interest of time, we shall dispense with the reading thereof. Do any members of the FAIM Society wish to inspect the minutes of the 2022 AGM? Should any member wish to read them, please see Michelle after the meeting. May I have a motion adopting the minutes of the 2022 annual general meeting and taking them as read?
I, Carla Schmidt, move to adopt the minutes of the 2022 FAIM annual general meeting and taking them as read.
Thanks, Carla. Seconder? Do we have a seconder? David, thank you.
Sorry, that was Ken Robertson.
Oh, sorry, Ken Robinson, sorry. So all those in favor, raise your pink, your green, okay. Anybody against? Motion is carried. In December 2022, FAIM was informed by Transcend LLP, this was FAIM's previous auditor, that they no longer had staffing with designation to complete our FAIM's audit. The FAIM board and management underwent a 6-week process to research and select a new auditing firm for FAIM. After this research, FAIM selected Ascend LLP out of Airdrie to complete this year's audit. I shall now ask Rohan Sethi from Ascend LLP Chartered Professional Accountants to present the 2022-2023 FAIM Society Auditor's Report. Just get that on your lapel.
This is probably going to be the most boring part of the AGM. I promise I'll make it quick and easy to understand. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for having us here, guys. It's always good to see a full AGM with members and people of interest. So I'm going to make this quick and short. So as we can see up here, and as all you guys know, majority of the funding for the society comes from the PDD contracts. That's about 97 and 98% of the contracting revenue comes from the government there. Key things over there, the organization also runs the sales and goods services, so that's your recycling programs and stuff and such. So there's revenue that's earned from that aspect as well. And then this year, there was a capital campaign that went through along with some fundraising that went through with the gala, the 50-50. So we did see some increase in revenue from that aspect as well. So all in all, one minor thing, there was also increase in interest rates, as you guys all know, in the market. So the GICs that the organization has did see some increase in interest income there, and that's due to the interest rate hikes that we see in the market. So that's as expected. So overall, there was about $7.6 million of revenue that the organization got in the year. And then now if we just go down to the corresponding expenses, majority of that revenue kind of was distributed towards the salaries, which we expect. So about 88% of expenses were related to the salaries in the current year. About 75% of those expenses actually are related to direct frontline staff. and about 13 is for supervisory and admin staff that we have in the society. There's also some eligible operating expenses that the organization had. About 10% of that, of the funding kind of went towards the operating activities for expenditure. So leaving us with a surplus of $380,000 for the current year. Yep, and that's basically it from my perspective. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll be here. Any questions? Promise it was the most boring part and try to make it as quick as possible. Thank you so much again, guys.
Okay, so may I have a motion adopting the 2022-2023 Auditor's Report as presented by Ascend LLP?
I, Carla Schmidt, move to adopt the 2022-2023 Auditor's Report as presented by Ascend LLP.
Thank you. A seconder? Bill, thank you. All those in favor? Okay, anybody against? The motion's carried unanimously.
If I can just say, Bob, I do have Carla making all the motions, but it's all written out, and so that's why I'm doing that.
Okay.
Are you getting some feedback, because I hear a buzzing here?
Once I get close to it. Okay, now we come to the election of directors for 2023-2024 term. FAIM's directors are elected to serve as directors for one-year terms with eligibility for re-election upon the expiration of such terms. As such, directors Bob McDougall, Bill Wilding, Ken Robertson, Heather Good, Neil Wallace, and David Stark are standing for nomination as directors of the Foothills Advocacy in Motion. Ms. Jan Mason and Mr. Catherine Mills are not standing for election this year. May I have a motion to elect these six individuals as directors of FAIM for the 2023-2024 terms?
I, Carla Schmidt, move that the current FAIM directors, Bob McDougall, Bill Wilding, Ken Robertson, Heather Good, Neil Wallace, and David Stark be elected as directors of FAIM for the 2023-2024 term.
Okay, seconder? Thank you. All those in favor? Okay, anybody against? The motion is carried unanimously. I now declare that Bob McDougall, Bill Wilding, Ken Robertson, Heather Good, Neil Wallace, and David Stark have been elected as directors of FAIMS until their successors have been elected or appointed. We now come to the appointment of the Society's auditors for the forthcoming year. May I have a motion to reappoint Ascend LLP Chartered Professional Accountants as the Society's designated auditor?
I, Carla Schmidt, move that FAIM reappoint Ascend LLP Chartered Professional Accountants as the Society's designated auditor for the 2023-2024 financial year.
Seconder? David, thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Anybody against? Is Rohan gone?
Yes, he left.
They really did a good job stepping in for us this year. We're very pleased with the change, just as a sidebar, with the change in auditors, and we think we're in really good hands there, so, yeah. Okay, motion is carried unanimously. I now declare Ascend LLP Chartered Professional Accountants as the designated auditors of the Foothills Advocacy and Motion Society for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. I'll now call on Jerry McCallum, the Executive Director, to introduce the proposed budget for the year 2023-2024.
One of my first AGMs this is the 8th AGM that I've been ED for, and one of the first ones I forgot this part in the meeting to introduce the budget, so I'm really glad that I am right now. So this is the budget for the next upcoming year. And so this budget was created by myself and the treasurer of our board, Mr. Neil Wallace. And we presented this budget to the board at the May board meeting. So that's why you'll see the date of May 10th, 2023. So similar to what Rohan was saying, there's, the majority of our revenue comes from the government. And that number is quite a lot, that 8,900,000 is quite a lot higher than the last year's budget. The reason being is that the government increased all agencies by 10%, the staffing, and so that was we really saw a big increase in our budget at that point. So those numbers look inflated, but also we're expecting some growth in our agency, and I'll talk a little bit about that, and Bob will as well. And we've also increased a little bit the sales of goods and services, capital campaign, that kind of thing. I'll just scroll up to, or down to, oops. Oh. So with the expenditures for this year, we are hoping to spend all the money that the government has given us. Again, we're a not-for-profit society, so we're not trying to make money, but we're anticipating a small profit of about $32,000. Now, it's a guess for sure, just because there's so many factors that come into the running of a business, especially with that size of a budget. It's really interesting. I just signed a 3-year contract with the government starting April 1st, and the total amount of this contract was $27 million. So that's 3 times $9 million. So it just shows again the size of the society and how we've grown. So this budget has been approved by the board of directors in May, as I said. Any questions?
Okay. May I have a motion to accept the 2023-2024 budget as presented by our Executive Director, Jerry McCallum?
I, Carla Schmidt, move that FAIM accept the 2023-2024 budget as presented by our Executive Director, Jerry McCallum.
I second it by? Thanks, Neil. All those in favor? Anybody against? The motion's carried unanimously. I now declare the approval of the 2023-2024 Foothills Advocacy and Motion Society budget is accepted. Okay, now we've reached the end of the formal portion of the agenda. So I'm just going to say a couple of words. I want to talk about 3 things. I want to talk about, I always want to put a plug in for the board, because we're always looking for board members. So I'll tell you a little bit about kind of, what's on our board member wish list, okay? I do want to talk about the facilities that we own, both here in High River and Okotoks and in Strathmore, and some of the capacity issues that we're facing and how we propose to deal with that. And then I want to talk about Airdrie. And you may recall a couple of years ago, we mentioned the potential of opening a branch in Airdrie. So I want to give you an update on what's happening there. So first, with respect to the board of directors, I mentioned Catherine Mills and Jan Mason did not stand for re-election. These are 2 very qualified directors. They've made significant contribution to the society, and we're going to miss them. I just wanted to say thank you to both those directors for their service, and and wish them well. So, The bylaws, our bylaws say we can have, I think, up to 10 directors, okay? Last year we had 8, this year we'll have 6. So we're always recruiting to add new directors. And we don't have a problem adding 4 and getting to the maximum number of 10. We just want to make sure that we add we're always looking for specific skills. So what are we looking for? So there's four kind of traits or experiences that we'd like to have in a new board member. The first is we'd like to have a Strathmore resident, quite honestly. We feel it's very, very important that on the board of directors, somebody that lives in the community that we operate represents that community at the boardroom table. And with Jan stepping back, we're missing that right now. And it's one where we're really struggling to find the right person to do that, okay? That person can be a parent or a family member with a family member in the program, but they don't necessarily have to be. We really just want to make sure we have somebody within the community that knows the community and can speak for the community. The second thing we'd like to have is, I call it a healthcare professional. There are a lot of times that we're talking about issues around the boardroom table with management that deal with medical conditions, health conditions for some of our clients in our programs. And sometimes it's existing clients, sometimes it's potential clients that we might take into the program. And we don't have that experience sitting around the boardroom table. And we think it would be really valuable to have a doctor, a nurse, or somebody that's kind of worked in that capacity in that system kind of help us kind of work through what are the important issues that we need to kind of consider. The third one is somebody with fundraising experience. We are not a fundraising board, we're a governance board, okay? And the difference is our responsibility is not to raise money. We've never been a big fundraising society. That's changing a little bit with the need to raise money to purchase new facilities in places like Okotoks and Strathmore. But we could use somebody that's got that experience who could work with us and help us kind of approach that in the right way. And the fourth criteria is what I call independence. Last year, 3 out of the 8 members were independent, meaning that they were individuals that didn't have family members in the program. And it's important that a board have a level, and with Catherine stepping down, that means 2 out of the 6 for this coming year are independent directors. And I feel that we need to have, at least one more independent director. So that's kind of our shopping list. We're always looking. You don't have to volunteer. You don't have to approach your neighbor that you think would be a great candidate. You just have to come tell us, and we'll do all of that for you. We'll make the approach. We'll make the pitch. We'll introduce the society. We'll do the work to try and convince them that if they're the right person, that they come and help us. Okay. With regard to facilities, so I think most people know this. We own this building, and we own the building in Okotoks, and we're mortgage-free on both buildings, okay? Okotoks and we rent in Strathmore. Okotoks and Strathmore are full, okay? And the impact it has on our program is from time to time we get waiting lists. We can't accommodate people who want to come and access the supports that we're able to provide because we don't have space for them. And we always sort of find out a way to kind of make that happen, but in the interim, there's people waiting to get the support that we're able to provide them because we don't have space for them, okay? So in the long term, we understand that we need bigger facilities in those 2 communities. We need a bigger facility in Okotoks. We need a bigger facility in Strathmore. And, but in the short term, we have to get somewhat creative in being able to deal with some of the bottlenecks and some of the capacity constraints that we have so that we don't say no to people that want to access our program, okay? And we had a really good example of this recently in Strathmore. They came with a recommendation, I think somewhat thinking that they wouldn't get approval for it, but they said, we've got a lot of growth in our outreach program and we need additional space to for staff, for clients, for meetings, for offices, and there needs to be a privacy aspect to that space. And we would like to rent this space just down the road from where our office is. And we asked a couple of questions, and we said, that's a great idea. That's a great way of dealing with the capacity constraints that Strathmore has to allow us to kind of say yes to the people that want to access our program. But in the longer term, we need more permanent space in both those communities, Okotoks and Strathmore, to continue to support the growth that we expect from these programs. And I think we can get our heads around how big the programs are going to be 5, 6, 10 years down the road. And I think we can get our heads around, well, what does that mean for space requirements? But what we haven't been able to get our heads around yet is what can we afford to spend, okay, and not put the society in any financial distress, okay? I mean, we are a very conservative society when it comes to our ability to be able to take on debt, okay? We've always been, we'll probably always be that way, but we have not been able to get our heads around kind of what can we afford to pay for, 5, 10 years down the road in these two communities. So, and there's all sorts of moving parts, like what will the interest rates be? What's the rental pricing? What's the rental availability? What does it cost to purchase a building in those two communities? What does it cost to build a building? What's the lead time for building a building? And that's the focus of a subcommittee of the board right now. We've had our first meeting 2 weeks ago. We're meeting again in another week. Our intent is to build a model so that we can model all these different variabilities and get our heads around what we can afford to spend, okay? And what we can afford to take on for additional debt to build this, to support the growth that we expect for the program. But I think the outcome of this work may look different than a lot of us think it might, okay? So, and I just wanted to give you a couple of examples of what the potential outcomes might be. The outcome of that work might be we could build or purchase a new facility to meet the needs of the program 10 years out. 10 years out. Not 2 years out. 10 years out. When do we buy Okotoks?
8 years ago.
Right. We were full 3 years ago. Right? So we cannot afford to buy for capacity that we think we need in 5 years and have to sell and buy again in 5 years to meet capacity for the next 5 years. If we're going to purchase a building, we have to be able to say, in 10 years, this is how big we think we're going to be. So we need to build that. And I think that's what was done when High River was built. They looked out into the future and they said, we think we're going to be this big, 10, 20 years down the road, and this is the size of building. So at the time the building was built, it was bigger than what we needed. But you're able to kind of stay in that existing space and live in it and not have to get up and move 5 or 6 years later, okay? So I think we learned some lessons with the purchase in Okotoks. And I think, we're going to incorporate those lessons into any recommendation to purchase space in the future. The second potential outcome, we could rent space that accommodates our current space needs, but allows us to add additional space, additional rental space as we grow. And I've told this to Jerry a couple of times. I worked in a business where nobody owned their space. They all rented. And the reason they did that, well, they did it for a number of reasons, but one of the things is in our business, the oil and gas business, one merger or acquisition and you were twice as big as you were yesterday. So you needed the ability to be able to get big and have space for more and get small because sometimes you sold assets, right? And that's the way they ran their building. So they contracted space in bigger rental facilities and they got options to kind of add to that over a period of time. So that's a potential outcome. The third one is it could be a hybrid model of either or both of those. And it could be different in one community than it could have been in the other community. Or it could be you purchase space for the bulk of the work and then you have a rental component on top of that. So as you continue to grow, you add more and more rental space. So it's 2 buildings. And I know no one likes that, but it gives you a lot of flexibility. So these are some of the things that I hope we're going to be able to kind of answer, some of the questions we're going to be able to answer. And in addition to the affordability one, we're hoping in the next couple of months here. Okay, and then I'll just talk briefly about Airdrie. How big is Airdrie? Anybody guess? 70,000 plus. That was 5 years ago when we looked at it. It's probably bigger now. That's twice as big as Okotoks. It's a huge community, okay? And they have no in-community support programs for people with developmental disabilities. All of it is accessed through the city, okay? So I would say in the last 5 years, we've had really, really strong support from the community for FAIMs to kind of come there and open an office. We submitted a proposal about 5 years ago to PDD. The timing couldn't have been worse. They said no, not surprised, okay? And in the past year, government officials have come to us and said, you guys still interested in doing that? Because the demand's still there. And the community has come back to us and said, we're still very interested in having you bring your brand to Airdrie. But it's important, the board has said no to resubmitting that proposal. We got asked about 12 months ago, we said no. We got asked about 10 months ago, we said no. And the reason we said no was because we had coming out of the pandemic, we had some very significant staffing issues. And the board wasn't comfortable that we could grow and expand in Airdrie and add additional staff and not have our current programs impacted by that change. So we were very clear, we said, you know, fix the staffing issues on your current business and we'll consider an Airdrie expansion. And in January, February, the government went through, they increased the wages. My understanding is the recruitment is going much better. My understanding is the vacancies are much lower. So we're making good progress there. And last month at the board meeting, the board asked Jerry to come back with a proposal to expand, to submit a proposal for Airdrie to the government for expansion. So that's where we're at. We expect that to happen in the next couple of months. We'll probably send the government something indicative in the next month or so, just saying, here's sort of what we're thinking. But the reality is the costs have changed significantly since 5 years ago. So we need to really kind of understand them a little bit better before we go in and say, yeah, we can do this, here's what it's going to cost. Okay, that's all I had.
Thanks, Bob.
Does it sound good back there, Dave? Good. Okay, so, you know, I was sort of thinking about what I would share with you today just as the Executive Director's report. And I just want to give you sort of some numbers about what number of people we support, some of the sort of the unique things that we've done, and then a couple other things. So first off, I just thought it would be interesting to see where we've grown as far as the numbers of people that we support. And I was working on this last week, and I find it's really interesting. So I went back to 2016, and so in 2016, you'll see the numbers. We supported about 98 individuals. And so the number that sort of jumps out at me is we opened the Strathmore branch in 2009. We didn't really see a lot of growth in Strathmore that we predicted for those first, 6, 7 years. So move ahead to 2020. We've seen some marginal growth in High River, some marginal growth in Okotoks, but almost a 100% increase in Strathmore. And so overall, there's about a 30% increase in the number of people supported at FAIM. Fast forward to today, so 3 years later, and High River's about the same. You know, probably the similar growth in Okotoks, and in Strathmore, another jump of numbers. So we're currently supporting 150 people at FAIM. Now that doesn't take into consideration sort of what Bob said there about our wait lists and people that are waiting to get into service. So I just threw on there for fun, just sort of an estimate 3 years down the road. And so that estimate is wrong because it's a guess. So it may be sort of right, but you'll also see I put in Airdrie there. And again, that's an estimate. We don't know that we're going into Airdrie 100%, but what I am guessing or estimating is that we're going to see a lot of growth in Okotoks if we open up the capacity for Okotoks. So you know, that's a 100% increase in the people we support in 10 years. So there is demand for services in rural Alberta, especially, you know, rural Calgary, and that's who we are, and that is the niche that we traditionally have now. We're not the only agency that supports people rurally. We certainly are a well-respected one, and we are one that we're sort of the biggest one that is outside of Calgary. The next thing I want to talk about is, you know, one thing that's really been neat this last couple of years, and actually for the last many years at FAIM, is our social enterprise. And so many of you will know that we started a recycling program at FAIM many years ago, I'd say in the 1990s. And that was started by an individual that we support that wanted to get recycling going. And so we have a lot of different entrepreneurial or social enterprise activities, and so we have a real champion at FAIM, and it's Heather Good. Heather's a board member, and she's really sort of taken on this entrepreneurial market with the assistance of Trina. Trina's... I think it's the other way around. So thank you to both of you, but we've had a couple of, we had a Christmas market, and then just the other day at Sobeys in High River, we had a market of just people selling their goods, and so it was interesting. Everybody that had a display there sold something, and some people really sold a lot of stuff. And so it was really pretty neat. Now, they also were selling hot dogs and that, so I hope not many of you had those. No, I'm just kidding. It was Neil and Bill. And so thank you to the board members that came out to assist with the.
Can I give a shout out to Sobeys?
Yes, and
Karen and Jason McCauley are fabulous supporters. And at the barbecue, I had come up with a price for the meal. The first 100 lunches were donated by Sobeys, and we were $5 a lunch. And the first 100 were donated to, so that was 500, and then we paid with a 20% cut on the grocery price for the extras. So Karen and Jason have been absolutely fabulous, and I can't speak.
They've been great supporters of FAIM, yeah.
Supporters of FAIM.
And Heather didn't think we would sell 100 hot dogs.
Well,
It's Saturday, it's garage sale day.
it had to do with the really good barbecue.
So just a couple of things, some projects that are on the go right now. So with the growth of our company, and as we bring more people into our program, we bring more staff in. And so we currently have about 120 employees, Michelle, not counting almost that many subcontracted care providers. So we have found that on occasion, the issues that arise being in an employer-employee relationship are getting really quite complicated. And so we had a major review of our human resources manual. So Michelle took the lead on that and did a lot of work over the last couple of years. We shared it with a couple of board members, David and Heather, and we've just sent it to a legal counsel, an employment lawyer, who reviewed it to see that we're in line with employment standards and the new legislation, and just so that we're not offside on anything. And so she sent back the findings, her edits, and so one of my goals the next couple of weeks is to review that. So that's one of the big things that will really, I feel, set us up over the next few years so that we are meeting like best practices with employment. Bob mentioned the Capital Asset Committee that we've just started, and we've also created 2 facility committees, one in Strathmore, one in Okotoks, to really look at meeting these capacity issues that we have. Bob also talked about Airdrie, and that's sort of on the as a question mark in the fall. Whoops. And then a couple other things. We have a strategic planning session coming November 6th. And so I wanted to say that as well is this board and some of the topics that the board is dealing with right now are really critical topics and critical decisions that will affect FAIM down the road. So again, you may know of people that you think, well, gee, this person would be really good on the board, because we, again, and I'm going to be talking to the Strathmore managers this week, we need to get representation from out there. So we have some really critical decisions coming with regard to the agency and our future. And then we have a professional development day, and with those 120 employees, none of them are all together because we're in different branches. So once a year we come together and we all hear the same training and learning so that we can again be at the front of the support for people that we deliver services to. Okay, so you may wonder, why am I showing this? Well, a few years ago we rebranded our agency, and we had somebody develop a logo, and this was the logo that we chose. And you see it, we have it plastered everywhere. Like, it's here, it's over there, it's over there. And so, why do we do that? Well, I guess I feel at FAIM we have a great message to share. We have a really compelling story, but we're not great at sharing that story. And so part of it is getting our logo out there. And so we, that's what we're doing. And so we're selling these sweatshirts, and you'll see them in every branch. We've just got some hats, and actually I have 2 hats to give away today. So I would like you all to quickly look under your chair and see if there's a sticker under your chair. It says free hat.
I got a car.
Like that. Heather, show everybody there. Heather, I think it's, look under here. I think it's right here. It's under this one. Is it? You have it? So give it to this lady here. Okay, so I just wanted to, so Trina is sort of spearheading this as well, and so she ordered 50 hats the other day, and they're gone. They went right away. So, it cost us about $18 for those. We're selling them for 20. We're not trying to make money off them, but we've ordered 75 more. So again, it's just to get our brand out there, and so if you're interested, you'll see them around the branches. So, right. Okay. So. Just a few fundraising events that we have coming up. So we have, I don't know what a banger bingo is, but I guess it's the rage. So these are Saturdays in August, September, October. So we have August 25th. The half marathon is Saturday, September the 9th. And we have an Okotoks theme party on Saturday, October 21st. So if that sort of resonates with you or you're interested, you know, we would love to have you participate. So last thing, just some thank yous for this event. You know, to those who have assisted in just setting it up, Jen, Michelle, Anna, Lisa, all the leadership who helped get this place set up today and help with the welcoming. Dave Otten with Affinity Digital Design. So Dave has done the taping of this. He did it last year as well. So this event will be available on YouTube. I don't think you'd ever want to watch it again, but if you do, or if somebody's asking you, you know, how is the AGM, just send them to the link. It'll be on our website. So, oops. Our FAIM Board of Directors, you know, I said earlier, we have a great board. Yeah, and I'm doubling everybody's salary on the board, which is 0 times 2 is. But, you know, thank you for all the work to all of you and, you know, throughout the year. We've made a change with our board meetings coming up, is that we are moving our board meetings to noon. So we'll have them at lunch hours, so I'll provide lunch, and it's, we've always had it in the evening, and so we just thought we'd try something for this coming year, so people seem to be interested in that. And thank you to all of you for attending tonight, either live streaming or here in person. You know, I appreciate the time that you've given to come here and hear about where we're going. And so please stay. We have lots of food. There's some coffee and drinks. The board members will have a short board meeting in the room over there. But thank you to all of you for attending. Hey?
They were all lining up to ask questions.
All right, were there any questions? Okay, actually,
There's this frisbee for the first person to ask a good question.
you should terminate the meeting. You should terminate the meeting.